So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to hear about the world of DevOps today, which is definitely a hot topic in the Salesforce ecosystem. But before we do any of that, I'm going to ask you some questions a bit about your background. So, yeah, thank you very much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks very much for having me, Ben, and thanks for making space on a Friday evening in Sydney. I'm sure you're ready for the weekend, so really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, like I said, lockdown's got me not doing much over the weekend. So this is the highlight of the weekend. So, yeah, thank you again. Let's start with a bit about you. So you studied computer science. What was your attraction to that, and what did you initially want to do with your career? Where did you see yourself going?
Yeah, I'm sort of your absolutely classic geek profile. So I'm from a really big family. I've got 5 brothers and 4 sisters, and a bunch of I'm the youngest brother, and a bunch of older brothers that were very into computers and into software. So I grew up in a house, always sort of surrounded by technology and tinkering with things. So my first computer was in the UK. You had these things called like Amstrad CPCs. They were like these really, really old, like sort of tape-based basic machines. So that was the first computer we had in the house. And what was awesome about computers of that era was to do anything, you were kind of dumped out to a programming language. You were dumped out to a basic prompt to do anything. And all I wanted to do was play games on them. But to play games, you had to sort of learn a little bit of programming just to get through to Dizzy or whatever it was you were trying to play. So yeah, I was just sort of exposed to programming, really, really like that. And then, yeah, sort of through high school, I just keep playing with computers and building PCs. So I don't know. When I went to university, I was either going to do physics because I loved sort of space and astronomy stuff, or else computer science. And computer science was sort of the sort of easier option. Nearly, it was the sort of obvious option.
So when you completed your computer science degree, what were you hoping to like? Were you interested in particular areas of engineering and programming, or computers and technology in general, or were there was there a niche you kind of were targeting?
Not really. I just wanted to be really good at programming. So I did an internship during university with Microsoft, first in Dublin and then in Seattle, and just that like ignited. I guess I'd always loved programming for the sake of programming. I wanted to be really good at that thing. I found it a deeply enjoyable activity. And then when I did my internships, I was working on the office team in like a really, really boring section of the office team. Well, not boring. I shouldn't say that because these people hear it. But it not like the sexiest part of the office organization. And it was still amazing the impact you can have when you write like great software, and the number of people that can cause to do their job or write their homework or whatever it is. Like the impact that Office has on the world is for good or bad. It's certainly an impact. And so that then I wanted to get out of university as quickly as possible. So I finished off my degree, and I took jobs with like increasingly small companies where I had more and more of an impact on writing the software and getting close to customers and understanding what their problem was. And that sort of like shifted me away a little bit from programming for programming's sake and over to, programming to write products to help people. That was sort of the shift and an evolution in that way.
Yeah, nice. So had you, at some point, did it trigger in your mind that you did want to build a business or, build a product of your own?
Yeah, probably product more than business, if I'm totally honest. I sort of throughout the early years of my career, I first of all, as I say, really loved software engineering and still do. Love working in a team to build great software. That for me is the really fun thing about when you get a group of people working together to create software. That's like a fun pursuit. And then the product stuff came next, where I started to have like a real external focus. I would speak to users of the software that I was writing to understand, oh, it doesn't work in this way. Oh, cool. Well, what were you actually trying to achieve with it? Like, what were you what were you actually doing when you use this thing that I like hacked together? Or like if this bug is causing you frustration in your day, like, you really feel it. Like you really feel that, oh my God, this thing that I've done, it's blocking this person, it's blocking their job. So it was that real human side of it, that I loved. And then the product fell out of that. So then it was like, okay, well, so the next evolution was to do some product management and understand how to really talk to people about when they like do a feature request or something, what do they actually mean? Like, what are they actually asking for? Don't deliver the thing they ask for, but understand what problem they're trying to solve and build product around that. So that all came next. And that's my true love is product development and understanding how to build a product to help people. And that's what, we've done with Gearset is the entire company's aligned around that. It's a product company first and foremost. So the company exists to deliver a product that helps people.
Yeah, nice. And we'll get on to kind of how that came to be. But first, I guess DevOps and the world of DevOps, like how did you come to find your way into that space and then eventually to go on to build a business in that space? But what was the kind of moment that DevOps became your path?
It was probably a combination of a couple of different things. So, as I say, growing up, I was always tinkering with computers and building PCs and networks and infrastructure and kind of like that hardware side of things. And then, as I say, I love building software as part of a team, and I want to be good at writing software. And a lot of that is using tools to help yourself be effective, to write great code and write great code as a team. So, really learn how to use your editors well, learn how to use source control well, all of that sort of stuff. So I got to really experience the impact that great tooling could have on your team's performance. I love all the stuff that the guys at JetBrains do. If you've come across their IDEs like WebStorm and folks in the Salesforce space doing things like Illuminated Cloud, I love that, like a culture of excellence in what you're doing. So that all came together. I was working for a company in the UK called Redgate Software, and they built it was DevOps before it was called DevOps. They built the release management and deployment solutions for the Microsoft platform for .NET and for SQL Server. And so I was writing those products, and that was a bunch of technologies I was interested at the time, and then a problem space I was really interested in, and then it was building products for people like me as well. So I kind of got the user profile a lot. I could really understand I really understand the impact of this product. And so all of that came together to what I do now, helping development teams and ops teams work more effectively.
My next question was going to be like, if you're at a barbecue and someone asks you what you do for a living, and you say, "Oh, I kind of," you mention your product, but you say it's in the world of DevOps, and someone doesn't understand what DevOps is. What's the best way of summarizing DevOps?
Yeah, it sort of depends what that barbecue is. So I live in Cambridge, which is full of lots of nerds. So if you go to a barbecue here, you can probably just say it straight. But if I'm at home or with my family or whatever, or folks that aren't in the tech world, I'll tend to say it as so my most basic pitch is folks doing a job need great tools to do that job. So the same way a carpenter needs a hammer or a saw, software developers need great tools as well to build, to do their thing. And so that's what Gearset provides. And then if I was, for your audience of Salesforce developers and admins, it's DevOps is all about helping software teams collaborate. It's a mixture of things. It's like a cultural change, a set of processes, a set of tools, and it's all coming together to help you build your solution more quickly, get it to your end users more quickly, and then understand if it's actually solving the job and feed that back into the product development lifecycle. So you sort of reduce that time to value. You reduce the time from the idea until your users are using it, and then you get it back in. And it's all very closely related to sort of agile software development and this idea that we want to get things out to our users quickly. The smallest usable thing, get it delivered, get them using it, and then understand how it's performing so we can make it better in the next iteration.
Yeah, nice. I still think in the Salesforce world, it's an area that's kind of being understood rather than it's already understood. And I think there's, obviously some people really do understand it. There's experts in this space, but there are still people that it's kind of a new concept and new tools and so on. So are there any misconceptions in your opinion of the whole DevOps piece, like whether that's tooling or Salesforce specific or broader across the DevOps ecosystem?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of misconceptions, because it's a sort of an ill-defined term, right? Like it comes out of the idea like that you used to have development teams and you used to have ops teams, and the two would not talk. So there's the folks running the software, racking up servers. There was the folks writing the software, and never the two would cross paths. Like that's where it came from. It was about breaking down those silos. Well, those silos don't really exist in the Salesforce world to the same degree, right? Like Salesforce are racking the servers for us, so we don't need to worry about that sort of stuff to begin with. So it's a slightly different thing in the Salesforce world. In the Salesforce world, it's about building out solutions in a robust way with the team collaborating together and getting those things out. So you've got a really predictable software delivery cycle on top of the Salesforce platform. And I think the biggest misconception within the Salesforce realm is that that it's a piece of tooling that you bring in, or that there's an end state that you reach that you now have DevOps, as opposed to it's a philosophical change about how you approach your development, how you get your teams working together, and how you get that nice predictable delivery on top of Salesforce. So I think it's that common misconception that DevOps is a single thing that means a single thing. A company adopts DevOps and that will be the same at each company. Whereas actually it's understanding what it means for your team, how you want to work together, what you're trying to achieve, and then bringing in a process and set of tools that supports that.
So you're not from a Salesforce background. So how did you identify the need for a product like yours in the Salesforce world?
Yeah, I'd say I was working at Redgate Software here in Cambridge, and Redgate's an awesome company. I had a fantastic time working there. Cambridge is full of lots of smart folks, lots of smart software engineers, and Redgate had lots of smart software engineers, and smart software engineers love inventing things, and they sort of think nothing else is good enough. And there's loads of homegrown things at all these companies, and Redgate was no exception, and it had a homegrown CRM because we'll do it better. And it's like this isn't a core competency of this company, right? Like they definitely shouldn't build their own custom CRM. And so that thing scaled for a few years, and then they bended it and brought in Salesforce, the thing they probably should have brought in to begin with. And as part of that implementation, maybe a little bit differently than a lot of other companies of their scale, Redgate worked with a great SI here in the UK, Make Positive, and also put a bunch of their own folks onto it, a bunch of their own software engineers. And through that process, we sort of saw the power of what Salesforce was. Like I got firsthand, oh my God, this isn't just a CRM or a SaaS application. This is a whole platform that you can build your entire business on top of. But man, the development experience and the ops experience was really very painful. Going back from the nice CI and CD workflows that we had on other platforms and adopting Salesforce, where Changesets was kind of the best answer, or dropping you out to an Ant script at the time, was just so painful. So you had this mismatch of this awesome platform that could do so many powerful things, but then was backed by a delivery pipeline that was, prehistoric compared to other things we were used to. So we identified the need, and I guess we were building tools like this for SQL Server and .NET. So we kind of thought, okay, well, there must be a really great Salesforce CI solution out there. So we started looking around and couldn't really spot anything that we thought was really great, like a really great product in this area. And so that was sort of identified the market opportunity and went out and said, hey, are we crazy outliers, or other people suffering from this problem, or other people happy with Changesets and maybe we just don't know how to use them effectively? Like what is it? Went out and spoke to lots and lots of Salesforce users and admins and developers, big companies, little companies, just started chatting to them, connecting with random people on LinkedIn and saying, hey, I don't know a lot. Would you mind giving me a half an hour of your time to teach me? Yeah. Spoke to lots of folks and saw that there was a problem there that we could solve. So set up Gearset to solve it.
So did you, because like you said at the time, it was you saw the opportunity, and but was it obvious to other people? And was the market crying out for this, or were people just just happy with what they had at the time in terms of like why hadn't someone else done it? I guess is my point. It's did it take a software engineer coming in with an eagle eye looking and saying this could be done so much better?
I'm not sure. I guess the metadata API wasn't that old. The platform, I guess Salesforce's rate of evolution is so huge, right? It wasn't that many years before that it was more of a CRM and well, like broad CRM SaaS application. It hadn't moved into the true platform stage. So I think it was, we just caught it at the right moment. I don't think it was any sort of unique insight or we're amazing product folks. I don't think it was that. I think we were in the right space, the right time, and had the right backgrounds to spot that there was a different way you could approach this problem. And then, yeah, in terms of folks wanting it, yeah, everybody we spoke to had this problem. And I'd done a bunch of product development in the past and on other platforms. And what's interesting is, if you take something like if you're going to do a DevOps tool for AWS or a DevOps tool for Azure or something, there's such a variety in requirement for each of those customers. Like some folks are using AWS in this way, some folks are using it in this way. They have this pain. There's a lot of variety and variability in the what folks want from it. Whereas when we spoke to Salesforce users, everybody had the exact same problem. It was the exact same set of issues, the exact same common challenges. So that gave us a lot of give me personally a lot of reassurance that quitting my job was a good thing to do.
Yeah, and I guess you're going direct to one problem, right? If everyone's facing the same thing, you know what you need to address immediately, so it kind of makes the solving that problem easier.
Yeah, I think so. It gives you something to focus on. Like lots of product development stuff is all around focus. So choose the thing you want to solve and then execute on solving it excellently. And it sounds really simple, but like saying no to things is sort of the hardest thing you can do in product development. Sorry, not the hardest, but it's the thing that you need to do that requires the most discipline and rigor. Like, what are we not going to do? What are we not about? And stripping that down to the thing that this is the thing we do. This is the thing we are going to help people with. And so if you have an audience that all have the same problem, it becomes easier to find that focus point. And so that was really nice in the early days of the company.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't have a clue what DevOps was probably 5 years ago. I'd been recruiting in the Salesforce ecosystem for a year. All I'd heard of was Changesets. And then I spoke to a guy that was passionate about delivery, and he was from a development background, and somehow placed him into a role that required him to be involved in setting up how a massive organization delivered. And then that's when, for me, DevOps started to become a thing. But it's evolved massively in the last 5 or 6 years, from what I've seen. But what about from your side in terms of the Salesforce world and now how Salesforce is, I guess, adopting DevOps? Has that kind of been a surprise in your view, or did you know that would come as soon as they had the right tools that you were providing?
Yeah, I think it's an inevitable consequence of larger teams working together to build software. You're going to need this kind of tooling. So I don't think it's anything unique to any particular platform. I think it's a collaboration problem. Ultimately, it's a collaboration and process problem, and then tooling helps solve that. So I think the big change came when Salesforce themselves started to recognize the way that their platform was going to gain market dominance and really be a massive competitor to Azure or GCP or AWS, not only in the application space where they're obviously the market leader, but in the general purpose platform space, was by addressing some of the underlying issues in their delivery or DevOps or ALM or whatever you want to call this. And when Salesforce started to care, and obviously they have a a marketing machine unlike anything else. When they started to, we'd been talking about version control, sort of shouting from over here, like as loudly as we could, you should adopt version control, you should adopt version control, your life would be better if you use version control. And we were making good inroads, but then Salesforce get up at TDX and say, version control is the source of truth. The org is no longer the source of truth. And then overnight, just the ecosystem starts to, version control sounds like a good thing. We're like, yeah, we've been saying that. So yeah, and then that was sort of, again, case the right place, the right time. Salesforce educates the market, and then they go out to look for solutions and find Gearset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there are still companies though using Changesets. And I find, I don't want to answer the question because I'm probably wrong, but it seems to be smaller businesses, right? So companies, maybe not smaller business, smaller development teams or smaller people working on the org seem to still do Changesets. At what point does it become, absolutely a requirement no longer to do Changesets and to look at products?
I would say that's almost from the get-go. So I would say any team using, and this isn't bias in that like Gearset has a solution to this problem. I think if you're using Changesets, you should certainly investigate and educate yourself to the alternatives. I think a lot of folks reach for it because it's there. It's sort of a convenient, comfortable solution. I think it is certainly on you to understand why you might not want to use Changesets and what you might get. So if you were to use something like Gearset as a sort of drop-in Changesets replacement, like don't change your process too much, just use Gearset to do it. Then you get something that's as easy to use as Changesets, so a really similar process, but a lot more powerful in terms of the bypasses a lot of the UX issues around Salesforce, like having around Changesets, having to click through page after page, having to like maintain an Excel spreadsheet of what components you've changed, overwriting each other's changes as you move them between environments. All that sort of stuff just goes away. You start to build up an audit trail of all the different deployments that you're doing. And ultimately then when your team does reach that scale where, okay, now we need a full end-to-end release process that supports 10 or 20 of us working together, Changesets are a dead end for that, right? Like there's no way to move from 5 people using Changesets to 10 people using version control. It's a total restart of your process. Whereas if you bring in something like Gearset, you'll have a drop-in replacement for something that's for your process today, and then as your team inevitably scales, you'll have a solution that'll scale with you. So I'm not just saying it because, I'm CEO of Gearset, but genuinely, if you're using Changesets, you should certainly understand why you're using Changesets and why you're not using something better.
I'll admit that I've been having some work done on my Salesforce org and I'm using Changesets. I'm not technical at all, and I'm a certified admin, but you wouldn't trust me to change a page layout. So that's as far as you just wouldn't trust me with your Salesforce org.
Can you use Changesets?
Well, this is the funny thing. Someone else is doing it for me. So I've got someone working on my Salesforce org, but I'm accepting the Changeset. So I go in the inbound Changeset. But the funny thing is, the guy that's doing the changes, he is a really experienced Salesforce architect, and he is not using Changesets in his day-to-day job. And watching him now use Changesets again, it's like he's pulling his hair out. He absolutely hates them because it's so much easier his day-to-day job. And now having to come back and use Changesets in my org, I can see the frustration. So I imagine a lot of people that once they move away from Changesets, never want to move back.
No, it's a real backward step. Yeah, although if you're a certified admin, if you're comfortable making changes, then you can absolutely use Changesets, right? And if you can use Changesets, you can use Gearset or the other options that are out there. There's a bunch that are sort of like easy onboard options for this stuff. I obviously think Gearset's the best one because why wouldn't I say that?
Of course.
But if you can make changes to your Salesforce org confidently, if you can, all of the things that you're doing, you can You can identify the components that have changed and move them between two environments yourself.
Well, we'll see. But that was going to be my next question, actually. Like, how technical do you need to be? And I think when people hear DevOps, and maybe not, I think if people hear the names of the products, they might be a little bit more comfortable because they might have kind of seen them before, or
Sure.
they've heard about them. But when they hear, oh, have you like any DevOps tools, or what do you know about DevOps? A lot of Salesforce admins say, they think that's not their area, or they think that's a technical area and it's for developers. So how technical do you need to be to use tools like Gearset?
Well, I don't think you do need to be. I think it's critical that I think any solution to this problem that doesn't involve everyone then is inevitably going to fail, right? So the whole point of DevOps, as applied to any platform, and certainly as applied to Salesforce, is it's around being inclusive. It's the whole idea that we're a team. It's a team sport. We need to work together. So if you have a fractured process where some folks are outside of the DevOps process, some folks are either using Changesets separately or relying on their colleague to migrate their changes from their environment through the various stages before it gets to production, then it's inevitably going to fail. That's kind of my fundamental sort of belief and tenet, is that this has to involve everyone on the team. The solution can't be too technical. And so it goes back to what DevOps actually means. And I think it's such a nebulous term. It means lots of different things to different people. And obviously the team that your friend was working at, that had 40, 50, 60, 70 developers and admins all working together, some architects and release managers and delivery managers. The type of process that team needs is so different from a team of 2 or 3, right? So it's about understanding what that team needs and putting in place the right process and tooling to support that. But for me, it's not the technology is kind of as an industry, I think we tend to love overcomplicating things. We love lots of complicated acronyms and make things sound very grandiose and complex branching strategies and all that sort of stuff. But you can simplify it all down. You can simplify it all down and get to the heart of what are the problems your team have in getting software built on top of the platform today, and how can a new tooling or process support that. And it needs to not be technical. It needs to be something that everyone on the team can access.
Sure. And you mentioned earlier the speed that Salesforce evolves, and I guess I'm not a software person, but to me it seems like they've set the bar for the amount of releases and the amount of just change that they're able to ship and develop in short periods of time. And I guess software companies like yourselves are expected to be able to get things out quickly now in this day and age, probably for the whole of the time software is being shipped. But how do you keep up with a company like Salesforce?
Yeah, Salesforce has an amazing release velocity for the scale that it's operating at and the ambition of each release. The number of things that are like in Winter 22 is just across the platform is incredible from that point of view. From the actual like velocity thing though, as a DevOps company, we don't just provide DevOps solutions to our customers. We practice DevOps and live it every day ourselves. So we actually release 3 or 4 times each and every day to all of our customers globally. That's the kind of release velocity that we're going to. And that's not just like little minor patch releases where you don't notice things getting updated. We are releasing new features just all the time, new features, ideas, refinements that have come in from our users. Our engineers speak directly to our users all the time. They'll do like, if it's a minor feature request, they'll have it out in sort of 72, 96 hours. If it's a bigger feature that goes into like a product development workflow, and again, like a crazy long time frame for us would be something in development for like 6 to 12 weeks. If we had been writing code for 6 weeks that we hadn't shipped to real users, that folks were actually using it and giving us some feedback on it, we'd be getting real antsy. We'd be like, oh, this isn't, we must have done something useful in the last 6 weeks we can ship. So we're shipping 3 to 4 times a day. That's the kind of rate that we go to. And then how we keep to Salesforce's sort of quarterly release cadence, we obviously stay on top of all the preview orgs, Salesforce for partners, and ISVs have a bunch of things where we get, even access before the preview stuff. So we stay close to that. And then we obviously know our counterparts over there at Salesforce and understand what their roadmap and trajectory looks like, so that we're ready to make sure that Gearset's supporting that platform when it gets to customers.
And I heard, I'm not sure if it's yourself or your business partner, but has like an open mic or open like forum once a month, or what? Like it's a regular, just where they're online. It's like I said, either you or your business partner just accepting customers asking questions.
Yeah, we actually both do that. So I do like an office hours thing just on Twitter where anyone can contact me, and then but Matt has a regularly scheduled thing where that's booked in every month. And that was kind of we want to speak to users all the time. So there's sort of like the few different ways you can do it. There's the users that reach out to us, and that's like awesome, right? Now there's a conversation about whatever they're struggling with. Then we'll proactively go out and target groups of users based on what we've seen them doing in the product, or based on their company size, or whatever it is, where we'll reach out to them and say, hey, have you got a half an hour to give us to talk about some things? And then we have those regularly scheduled things that are set up, basically like recurring webinars and office hours and drop-in Q&As, for folks that are like a little bit more passive and they want to just click on the invite, and maybe the first couple they'll come to, they'll lurk and listen, and then they'll sort of see that actually we're genuine about this. We genuinely want to talk to you. We genuinely want to understand what your team looks like and what the challenges are. And if Gearset's great, we want to hear that. And if Gearset sucks and it's hard for you to get things done, we want to hear that. We just want to speak to our users and find out how we can help them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've not heard other companies do that. I mean, obviously there's certain initiatives, but to have that much of an open door policy has obviously really benefited you as well, being able to hear from the horse's mouth from your user base. And over the years, what have been some of the most enjoyable moments or the biggest challenges of running a product business?
That's a great question. It's a real ups and downs things, because it's the amount of work you have to put in to get something like, I'm sure it's the same for any company. It's not just a product company. Creating any company, creating something from scratch is so hard. It requires so much of you, and you put so much of yourself into it. Like, and I think that's probably true of anyone, maybe not just companies, anyone trying to do anything new. I think that's probably true. You have to, most things fail, and that's okay. So the idea of putting yourself through that and, really busting through all the obstacles to get it going, it's been ups and downs. So some of the ups are, the first time we went to Dreamforce as an exhibiting vendor has to be, one of the most fun, hectic weeks of my life, because you go and, from the attendees' point of view, it's like, oh, I'm going to go up to the vendor booth and there'll be swag and stuff. From the vendor's point of view, especially us, we were a 7-person company when we first went. And if you're 7 people manning a 7-person booth, you're working from 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's it. That's what you're doing. And we were staying in this like Airbnb, like 45 minutes away from Moscone, and you were sort of dragging yourself in on the train early in the morning, whatever you call the San Francisco Underground, the BART, and that was like 5 a.m. There's some photographs we look back on now where it's like us at 5 a.m. with like super bright orange t-shirts, that are going to be on the exhibition floor looking all happy in a few hours, but on the train at 5 a.m. you don't look that happy. So all those like forming experiences were really, really great, and meeting our users for the first time, folks coming up and telling us, making that human connection on this software had completely changed how they did their job. Or when folks would go past, it's like, hey, how's it going? How's your Dreamforce? Have you heard of Gearset? No, I haven't heard of Gearset. Of course you haven't. We're a brand new company. Cool. Come on, let me show you a demo, because we're all about the product. So it wouldn't be, let me talk to you about the business value that you'll derive from Gearset. It's like, hey, let me show you a quick demo. Do you use Changesets? And we'd take them through, like on an iPad, we'd take them through it. And like the number of people going, wow, and it'll show you all the differences. So I don't need to, oh, wow. those moments were they were such validation of all the work that we put in. So yeah, the lows are when things are just, you feel you're not making progress, and then the highs are just, all my highs are around either stuff we did together as a team, or else meeting real users and understanding how it had changed the way they work. Those were definitely the highs of doing Gearset.
Sounds like some journey. So your personal role has evolved as well as the business has grown, right? So I'm guessing obviously you were working in product prior to starting the business, and like were you back like bang on the keyboard like to start the business? Were you really heavily involved in the engineering piece?
Yeah, from the get go. Well, I had a blended role from the get go. It was all product development. So I was, you know, it was me and a few others at the very start. So Andrew was writing code from the get go. Matt, Luke, Ollie. There was a bunch of us that were writing code, and then also going off to do product management calls and try and meet users and try and meet MVPs and get feedback on what we were doing. So yeah, it was sort of it was quite erratic hours at the time, depending on which time zones I was speaking to folks in. So it was either get up early, write a load of code, and then spend the second half of my day doing product management, or else product manage in the morning and then sort of write code to 1 a.m. But yeah, it was everything. When you're a 7-person company, you're doing everything. You're buying machines, you're setting them up, you're doing the like lunch run. It's really, you're doing everything. And that was true. Not me. It wasn't like a hero effort. We were all doing everything. We were all writing code. We were all writing marketing copy. We were all building websites. We were all just doing everything.
And now obviously CEO of a company of 130-ish people. Do you still get to do some of that fun stuff that you enjoyed from day one?
Not during my day job. On the weekend, I will still write code. That's as sad as it sounds. That can be at times. If I've had a particularly stressful week, then I will do stuff. Or maybe stressful is the wrong word, although it often comes with stress. But if I'm doing something that I find really hard, like really, really hard, and I feel like I'm not making progress, or whatever it is, at the weekend I'll write code, because that reminds me, oh, there's something here I'm not too bad at. I'm okay at this. So if you ever get that like imposter syndrome or a bit like self-doubt, then I'll go back and write a little bit of code at the weekend. So I still do a lot of our own internal Salesforce stuff. So a lot of our because my role now is CEO. I've got a dual role of CEO and head of sales. So I spend a lot of our time doing go-to-market and working with my team leaders on sales and marketing and customer success to understand how our customers are finding Gearset, how they're going through that trial, and what the onboarding implementation looks like, and working with some of our most strategic customers to understand, what are their ambitions with Salesforce over the next 18, 24 months, and how can Gearset support them, in getting ROI from that investment. So I have a lot of those types of conversations. And so through that, I get exposed to, I really understand here, if we could tie this data set to this data set, or if we can take the telemetry from these systems and pipe them in so that we can get these, nice overviews of how our users are actually using the software. So I'll do a bunch of that stuff on the weekend, just because, it's a fun thing to do if you're a bit of a nerd like me. But in terms of my actual day job, like I can't allow myself to do that stuff whilst the company's paying me, because it's just too tempting. It's too tempting to fall back in the stuff you're good at when you're trying to make progress in the stuff you're not so good at.
Yeah, and final question for me: what are you most excited about the future of the business and running the company as a CEO?
Oh, just terrible answer. Sort of everything we're doing. The Gearset has just been a constant story of change. So we've doubled every year, and we're on track to do that again. So that's more than doubled headcount, revenue, everything every year. The ambition of what we're trying to do, in the next few months, some of the product announcements that we've got around our pipelines thing, where it's more than visualizing, a flow of change through a set of environments, but how do you really get teams delivering change across the whole suite of what Salesforce now is? So there's a whole bunch of product stuff going on there. There's a bunch of like under the covers things. So the metric that drives our product function a lot is this idea of deployment success. So we actually, measure every single deployment that happens in Gearset, which is many, many hundreds of thousands a month now. And we track which ones fail and which ones pass. And then for the ones that fail, we look at, anonymized and an aggregate for what those failure reasons are. And we bake intelligence back into Gearset to make sure that the next time that user does that deployment, it doesn't fail. And these are things that are caused by new features that Salesforce release quarterly, whatever it is. You see we hotspots of failure that creep up, and that drives our product function. So are our users successfully moving changes from one environment to the next? And the sort of data we gather is if you're doing this with Changesets, it's about 50-50. So that if you're using Changesets or Ant naively, about half the time it works. With Gearset, we've got that up to about 95%. And so everything we do and all of the new things that we bring out are all underpinned by that intelligence into the platform. So we keep making advances in that. But yeah, and then from the business side, we've just opened an office in Chicago about 6 months ago. That's been really fun scaling that up. We've got some amazing folks who've joined the team there. And I'm really looking forward to getting out to see them because obviously travel is difficult at the moment. But we've had our sales leader come across. I've met him in person for the first time. We've been working together for the last 6 months over Zoom, but we got to meet and go out for dinner and drinks this week, which was a lot of fun. And I'm going to go to Chicago in Q4 for sure. I don't know how I'm going to get, but if I have to swim, I'm going to get to Chicago in Q4. So that's the other sort of big thing I'm looking forward to.
And are we going to see you personally in Australia at some point?
I would love to go. We've got a bunch of customers down there and a bunch of folks I'd love to get a chance to meet because I'm waiting to see what Salesforce do with the world tours and thing. It would be really nice to get out to one of those if they get kicked off again.
Yeah,
It's a very long way away, Australia. You guys are down there enjoying the sunshine, keeping it all to yourselves. It's a long old trip, but I'm sure we can find a reason to do it next year.
Oh, nice. Well, fingers crossed. And obviously, we've got the new Salesforce Tower opening here at some point. So, yeah, hopefully that's going to attract more and more people. And, it'd be a great time to come over. So hopefully we'll get to meet you in person at some point. But thanks so much. I've really enjoyed chatting about DevOps, which is something, a few years ago I wouldn't have known that I would be saying. So really, really interesting insight from yourself. And thanks so much for telling us about your journey.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.